Good morning, everyone. Thank you for showing up. This is going to be our lightning session for listings, lead-ins, and data, oh my. My name is Grant Cover. I'm the Director of Major Accounts at Tribune Media Services, also known as TMS. And this is my friend and colleague here, Andrew Blickstein. Andrew?
Hi, I'm Andrew Blickstein. I'm president and founder of Home Run Media. We're an agency in Chicago.
For those of you who showed up, I appreciate it. I do want to take a quick moment and thank the ERA for organizing this. About 5 years ago was the first time I attended an ERA show. It happened to be a Miami show that was being held. And I knew nothing about the DR industry at the time. It was a lot of feedback. It was a chance for me to really get to know some of the different individuals and players within the industry. And it actually was at a session 3 years ago that I ended up following this gentleman around, because every session I was at, Andrew would show up, and at the end of the session, he was the guy that would ask the most interesting question, the most probing question, and I thought, I got to know a little bit more about this guy. But it was an opportunity for us to present here this year with some of the information that we do on our end for long form, and I thought it'd be a great opportunity to share what we've learned through our experiences working together and how we play with different marketers in the industry, and share that with you as well. But a big shout out and thank you to the ERA for organizing this. It's day 3, we're almost there. I know some of you guys are getting ready to go home later on today or tomorrow, but safe journeys to everyone, and again, thank you for joining us.
So as Grant just illustrated, ERA is really about making intimate connections with people. It seems with the group size that we have today, we really have an opportunity to do that. One thing I'd love to know, since it is a little smaller group, is it would be great if members of the audience can share with us some expectations or some takeaways they would love out of this seminar, so we can really customize our content and make sure that we can deliver some great takeaways and reward you for coming and listening to us.
Which means it's a little bit of test, so you guys actually have to pay attention and throw something back out to us so that we know we're answering the questions or things that you want. Is there anything that comes to mind immediately for you?
Or are you just here for the free Wi-Fi?
Yeah.
I'm interested in, relatively new to the DR space, I'm interested in how data impacts the overall data stack of different ecosystems.
Sure. Fantastic.
How data impacts
the overall ecosystem of the direct response landscape. That's definitely something that's on our agenda too, so good one.
Or a good one.
Yes.
I just did an analysis, and apparently we get better results from non-clean lead-ins as opposed to clean lead-ins. I'm trying to figure out why our commercial would be better when it's a bunch of other commercials as opposed to coming in or out of actual programs.
Interesting. That's really great feedback there. It kind of runs counter to what a lot of people would think. I know there's a lot of value that's placed on a clean lead-in. Great. Any other questions out there? All right, well, those are 2 really good ones, Andrew, I think, to do. Before we get into that, I kind of just want to give you guys an understanding of what the television landscape is and how television listings come about into our day-to-day existence. So Tribune Media Services has been a standard or an aggregator and standardizer of television listing information since the mid-1960s. Most of you guys probably think of TV listings looking like this, a static grid. You know, you have your intersecting lines with a channel, an airtime, the amount of information that's being displayed on that. This was great when we lived in a static world where we basically got our listing information from a newspaper or from a Sunday TV book. And Tribune had been providing that type of data for years and years. However, with the advent of the cable systems in the 1980s, the satellite systems in the 1990s, and of course the online explosion that took place at the, which sounds so weird to say, turn of the century, we found that our data played very, very well in those landscapes. So nowadays, when you think about a television listing landscape and what Tribune Media Services does, we have over 16,000 channels of programming information in our database. So we collect and aggregate all the schedules from every major network, every channel, all full-power broadcasts, all low-power broadcast stations around the country, mash it all up in our database, and then license it back out to the folks like DirecTV, Dish Network, Time Warner, Charter, Cox, Cablevision, AOL, Yahoo, TiVo, etc. They in turn use this to power either their set-top boxes, their online experiences through the apps that they're developing. We also supply that same data to the ASCAPs and BMIs of the world. They use it to track programming content so that they can pay out properly on their royalties and residuals. There's a whole vast network behind the scenes of television listings that's really pretty much invisible to most people, because you expect when you sit down in front of your television to turn on your TV, look at your guide, and figure out what you're going to watch for programming content based on what's on that guide. With over 500 channels typically available in any system, there's a lot of opportunity to simply guide surf, and you no longer channel surf. So we've been working with direct response marketers and agencies since the mid-1990s to go into that database that we have of our schedules. We know all the programming content that's out there. We know every avail for long-form inventory. We get these schedules in from channels and networks around the country, so we can pinpoint the exact time and place that a long-form program is going to be airing. We work with companies such as Andrews and others out there to go into our database, scrub out those pesky words paid program, and put in place a long-form listing and description. We started doing this in the mid-1990s. The business has exploded in about the last 5 years. Coincidentally, it's when I joined ERA and got involved in DR, but I'm not going to take full responsibility for that or credit. It's this kind of way that the world has been driven through information and technology into looking at these listings on screen and online. We found some really interesting results with listed shows versus non-listed shows. It made a big difference in many instances on how a show would perform if it didn't say just a generic words paid program, but if it had a promotional or an emotional or branding message attached to that 30-minute segment that was showing up in the guide. Is everybody following me so far? Make sense? Good. I'd like to take this opportunity right now to kind of break and talk a little bit about the listings, and Andrew, what some of your experience has been with listings for your clients, and just get some feedback about what's happening in that world, if you don't mind.
Yeah, so for us, it really comes down to what value can we add to affect our client's bottom line. That's really how we look to drive our business. That's how we make every decision in the company. And what listings allow us to do is really raise, customized listings, I should say, is really raise the response rates of our clients' infomercials. It does drive call volume significantly up. It does generate some what we would call junk leads. So it's common that the conversion isn't as high on infomercials where we have a customized listing, but what we do understand is that overall it will drive more orders to our clients. So where this type of what really helps deliver is like all data allows us to target and test a little more effectively. We can look for parallels and constantly say every time we use this word or every time we use a title that is a little flashier, it drives a fitness product, versus if we have a title or a client that's looking for really retail support, we'll know to make sure to put the brand name in there, and it's going to help drive retail support and elevate the brand. So for us, it's really just about an opportunity to continue at actually, truthfully, a very inexpensive way to continue to deliver value and bottom line dollars to our clients' marketing campaigns.
Excellent. Andrew, we get close to 200,000 individual long-form time slots with a specific title and description entered into our database on a monthly basis. As your experience has been, you probably have seen some of these show up on your guides at home or at work. As you're flipping through, you may see something that is definitely catching your attention, and you actually go to click on it or view on it, and you realize it's a long-form paid programming that's airing there. With this kind of volume that's going into the television landscape, what type of response rate or what type of bump would you typically see for a listed show versus a non-listed show from your own personal experience?
Yeah,
and it varies.
We actually did an analysis of this recently, and what we've seen is it varies widely, to be perfectly honest. We see some shows with as little as a 10% response rate, and we see some that it's a 60% bump in response rate. I would say on average, it's 30 to 40% increase in response just by buying a listing for a few dollars. This is national cable, by the way. It's very significant in terms of bumping the response rate. Like I said, it does create some junk leads. It does create a lower conversion. But if we really just say, what's our revenue on spot A versus spot B, A having the listing and B not having the listing, we'll almost always see a higher revenue on spot A.
Have you done that same analysis for local listing?
We haven't done it internally. I know that Grant certainly has some.
Yeah, so I kind of consider myself an arms dealer. We work with literally every major marketer and agency out there. While I don't have access to the immediate analysis and results, typically I do get a lot of feedback about what's taking place with on the local landscape. As Andrew had mentioned, people always immediately pay attention to the high-profile cables, and typically that's where most folks will start out when they first sign up for the listing services. They're like, we're going to take our $1,000 and up airings or $5,000 and up airings. We're only going to list those. Over time, though, they tend to keep dropping it further and further down to see what type of results that they're getting back from it. And in many cases, but certainly not all, because so many tests can be subjective and results can be subjective, they'll list on a very granular level in the local market. So you'll have your Paducah, Kentucky affiliate station will be listed, as well as your Discovery Network program will be listed. Overall, because there's a rising tide tends to lift all boats, they find that listings will make a positive impact versus a non-listed show. And it's just, I think, our own television viewing habits nowadays. I mean, typically as you're looking at that guide, if you see paid programming, and it's paid programming, unless you're in the industry, you're probably just going to zip right on by. However, if you're a consumer out there and you see something that tantalizes you, something that makes you interested in wanting to view it, you're going to click on it, you're going to set your DVR to record it. With the listings too, you get descriptive information that gets baked into the database. So as more and more guides are becoming interactive, you can do keyword searches off of them. You can begin to find specific genres that you're interested in. As a viewer, your paid programming content will get served up in those same search results.
And the other part is this is DR, right? And if we're not testing in DR as an agency on behalf of our clients, we're not really doing our job. There should be constant testing going on, even if it's just a small portion of the budget. So there's no reason not to test what that bottom level is. And what we've also found is that for some $100 avails, it makes sense, and for others it doesn't. And in some markets it might make sense, in some markets it might not. It can depend on the penetration of his listings into a specific market. It could depend on counter programming. There's lots of different reasons why it may or may not work. But like we always encourage a constant test on what the title is to try and incrementally improve it and let that get fresh. I would encourage a test into different markets.
That's a great point, Andrew, too, about keeping it fresh, because things tend to get static and stale after a while. After you see something 6 or 7 times, you don't see it anymore. It just kind of blends into the background there. So we've always encouraged agencies and marketers to constantly keep freshening up their data sets that they're providing in there. Mm-hmm. I had mentioned a little bit earlier, I'm kind of, yes, please, question.
You get feedback from the networks when you click on the guide versus going to the channel. So,
right. We don't actually get the analysis back from that, no. That information is collected typically in the set-top box, and there are many companies out there who are basically data mining the click-through rates and the channel progression that subscribers are going to. We're kind of platform agnostic at TMS in that regard. We're fueling the engines for the set-top boxes, but we're not really getting the feedback from it in that regard. Andrew, it's a great question for you. How would you measure effectiveness of a show that is listed?
Listed two different ways.
Well, no, listed one way, but how do you know that customers just reading their channel, like from channel to channel versus using the guide and engaging with the guide?
The reality is we don't. We don't know how they land on it, but as a DR agency, we have a very robust testing methodology, whether it has to do with introducing new channels or introducing a listing onto a paid programming spot where, essentially we have a control spot, a non-control spot, and mirrored schedules. And really what it comes down to is, what's the cost per acquisition on the spot, and what's the cost per order on the spot, and do they fit with, do we see a lift? Is it a reasonable lift? I mean, I'll realistically put this in perspective, and I don't, it costs roughly the price of a latte at Starbucks to list. Okay, and the question I actually had for Grant over dinner last night is why do you value it like that? Because clearly it's worth so much more to my clients, right? So it's such a no-brainer, and it's so easy to say, well, this spot generated, we ran it 3 times without listing and 3 times with a listing, and it had an average of a 5% list, a 5% lift on a $2,000 spot. It obviously pays for itself, regardless of exactly how it got there. But we consistently see higher response rates on listed spots. It's a real effect. So,
Andrew, who pays for the service on your end?
It depends, right?
You'll pay us, right? Because you have the
yes.
contract with us, and then what do you do with that cost?
Well, it really depends. We try and get our clients to do it. It literally is very inexpensive, but we do have clients that, like a lot of clients, they're always looking to shave a dollar or two, and we will do it on their behalf with the belief that it will raise their response rate, raise their revenue, and will free up marketing dollars, and it'll ultimately benefit the agency because it benefits the client. Anything we do to benefit the client, we'll do it. It's such a low cost for us to incur to really add value to the client. I think of all the things we do in other departments that are very expensive where we add value to the clients, and this is just a very low cost way to handle it. Although I did make the case that it should be the networks paying for the listings. So
that's another conversation we'll have at another date and time, though.
yeah.
Is everybody following on how the listings work so far? We're going in, scrubbing out paid programming, putting in specific titles and descriptions. Over the years, we've noticed that more and more marketers are getting involved in the conversation as well with the agencies and coming up and creating, these more test-worthy titles. Have you found that you get a lot of input back from your clients directly on that, or do they kind of give you the imprimatur? They trust you to do it, and you just go off to the races with testing on titles?
It usually starts one way, and then it usually ends another. So it usually starts with they want the total control, and they want it to say this, they want it to represent their brand this way, and then as we start to kind of work within that realm of testing, and they see that we have experience there and can deliver results, they'll kind of loosen it up a little bit and allow us to have a little more control, because really they're focused on the bottom line, and over time they realize that maybe their agency knows a little bit more how to affect that bottom line in certain areas than they might.
All right, excellent. Vi, how are we doing on time? I know we're starting to press up again. We're good? Okay. I want to make sure that we definitely answer your 2 questions that are coming up here.
Yeah, I wanted to get to the clean lead-in question.
Sure.
A little bit. We've seen it. So we've seen shows. We've had shows where they'll only buy the clean lead-in, and then we have shows where they kind of want to be what I call that death spot, which is that 5 a.m. I would say it's neither morning nor night anymore at that time, and it's usually kind of in the middle of a paid block. And it's really a lot of it is there are 2 factors that I wrote, and really a lot of it's a function of rate. I mean, there are times where the clean lead-in, yes, it can get more. The question is, does the dirty spot just flat out get more response, or is the cost per call out of whack? And my experience is, while it may get less response, it can definitely drive a more efficient cost per call, because the premium on the clean lead-in can be tremendous, especially on networks that have a very finite amount of inventory. The other thing is the type of audience that gets delivered. So for years we did marketing for Time Life, right? And I remember very early on, we were always chasing music shows to follow. This was back in the early 2000s, and there might be a video show on a Friday night, or I remember there was a Motown show for a while, and we had a soul product, and we'd chase that. And we realized that, boy, no one bought it. We might be delivering a great audience, but we weren't delivering buyers. So I think what happens sometimes is that the non-clean lead-ins, while it may deliver a smaller volume of audience, it delivers an audience that's more ready to buy. They've already sat through a paid program. They know what's coming up. They acknowledge what it is. We're not tricking them into thinking it's anything else, and that they're more geared, almost, not exactly, but almost a little more like a QVC, HSN kind of mentality. So.
Do you know what your lead-in was? Even. Okay, fine. Yeah, we can certainly take that offline. But one of the things I wanted to bring up here in the short time that we have remaining left was to also talk about the overall data set. So we've addressed long-form listings and how they're prevalent within the database, and the type of difference that they're making in the overall transaction of DR products that are being shown there. Again, kind of taking a look at the data sets that we have in our database, we're able to locate every single long-form paid programming time slot around the country. We're able to locate all of the lead-in information surrounding those time slots, all the lead-out information, all of the nuanced information, like what genre was the lead-in, what genre was the lead-out. Again, this is all the information that powers your set-top box. You would normally be just seeing it as you're scrolling it through, but we put this data set together that we've been licensing out to agencies as well to kind of give you as marketers and as agencies and folks trying to get the best bang for your buck, more information, more data about what's really happening within that paid programming landscape. Andrew, I know you've toyed around and have worked with the avails reporting data, as well as other types of data tools that are out there. Yeah. What do you find brings the most value to you as an agency? Well,
to me, I was actually excited by your question, because I always feel proud of my research department and my agency, and really, to me, overall, any kind of research really allows us to target better. So the traditional DR model is very much we'll throw it up, we'll test it, we'll see what sticks, we'll rebuy the efficiency, we'll drop off the least efficient things. And that was a great model 20 and 30 years ago, but we live in an information age now, and the data that's available is so strong. And just generally speaking, what we found is what it costs to buy that research and analyze it and implement it is way less expensive and effective than going out and using the old model of just testing and retesting. So it allows us to find the target audience more efficiently and faster. So a great example of that in long form, and by the way, I'll say we use, for short form, we use Kantar, we use MRI, we use a lot of Nielsen, Iconoculture. We use a lot of tools for research in our short form business. In long form, the reality is there's only one player in the game, or essentially one, and that's Tribune, because Tribune is the only one that offers us a platform that looks ahead, right? So we can start to track and it falls under the category of research and targeting, is what type, not just do clean lead-ins work better, what genres of clean lead-ins work better. We also know more or less, if it's not a clean lead-in where it's a paid program, that certain genres of paid program lead in better. So we might have a fitness product that we know we don't want to follow another fitness product because it absolutely muddies the waters. People get indecisive, they're not clear. But we may say, well, boy, every time we follow a wrench or maybe because it's delivering a male audience, who knows? We can find an opportunity to find a better target. So yes, we may have to go in and pay a preemptive rate. We may have to go in and pay a little higher rate, but it also becomes an area where, okay, we have a much better idea that we're not only going to deliver an audience, we're going to deliver an audience of buyers. And we know that because when we followed that in the past, it's worked for us. So That's where the avails reporting becomes really, really powerful for us, is tracking our very basic DR, tracking what worked in the past, not just looking at results, but starting to follow why. It's the Simon Sinek, start with why. Why did this work better? Did we know it worked better because it was on discovery? Did we know it worked better because the rate was cheaper? Or did it perhaps work better because of the type of programming it followed? So we really try and look at as many different factors as we can and try and find the correct pattern. And that's what research will do in DR.
Whose bottom line does this usually affect most when you're doing this kind of research? Do you do it as an agency so that you can kind of plant your flag and say, look, this is what I bring to the table, or is it really because the value overall that you bring at the end of the day for your client?
You know, it's about the client. So I'm a big believer in core values, and one thing that is not a core value of me or my agency is to chase the dollar, right? It's not, for me, it's not the way to grow a great business. It might be a way for me to get a great job or to be profitable, get some more income, but the reality is I do everything to affect the client's bottom line. That's why I said earlier, sometimes we wind up paying for the listings. So it really affects our clients more than anyone, whether they want it or not. We absolutely believe in it.
Great. Did we get that last question answered properly?
Did you want me to talk a little further about research? Okay.
Great.
So we do have a little more, I believe we have a little more time. Is there anything that we said that sparked another question or that people would like a little more feedback on?
Don't all talk at once now. One real quick thing to add to the listing service. People are always asking, you know, the listing technology has grown substantially over the years, and people are always asking, what's next? What's the next thing that's going to really happen with the guides? More and more guides are becoming image-driven. You'll see TiVo has been a partner of ours for years and years. They were literally a couple of people working in a garage, and they're like, you know, I have an idea to kind of be able to record live television, not on a tape, but on a hard drive. And they use the Tribune ID system with that. And they've really done some leaps ahead in creating very interactive, image-driven guides. We all have something like this, a tablet or a smartphone, icon-driven. So we've been approached by the folks at Scientific Atlanta, Motorola, et cetera, who are developing the next generation of set-top boxes. And they're basically requesting that we want an image for everything. We want absolutely every show, every bit of programming content to have an image associated with it. So you'll see over the next couple of years, guides begin to migrate from the traditional linear grid, as we showed at the beginning here, to a more image-driven grid, where you'll see the logo for Grey's Anatomy, or you'll see the logo for X Factor at the 8 a.m. or 9 a.m. p.m. time slot, as opposed to the traditional listing information. You'll still get all that robust listing information by telescoping down into it. So we've been approached by the clients that we worked at to have that information. So I'm starting to seed the field out there, and I'd like to share with you as well that there'll be more and more instances coming in the future where not only will you be able to list your show with a specific title and description, you'll be able to attach an image to it that's representative of that long form. So whether it's the product itself, whether it's a celebrity spokesperson that you have with it. So as people are going through their guides, either their smartphones or tablets or on screen, they'll have the ability to see your image with it. Included with those images will be URL links. As more and more guides are becoming intuitive and interactive, especially on the tablet platforms or the mobile platforms, there will be a day in the very near future where your image, your title, your description, and your unique landing page will all be part of that listing information, and you can actually begin to do a transaction immediately right from the show listing. So it's really, getting baked into the ecosystem out there, and I do share that is something that's going to be coming down the line, and as you hear more of it, or if you have more questions on it, we can certainly address that offline.
I couldn't think of a better thing than a before and after.
Oh yeah.
To put.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah. And the other thing I can't wait to happen is when Tribune starts to track the product associated with the title, and lets us look into that a little bit too.
Yeah.
Any more intelligence we can get about what our competitors are doing allows us to really feed it into our clients.
Sure. Well, again, it's a advanced landscape that we're kind of looking at here with the data sets. And when you have 200,000 individual long-form time slots that have a population of a title and a description, once we begin to product associated with that, again, as a researcher, more data points to be looking at.
Right. Well, fantastic. Thanks for your time. I'm glad
Yes,
we were able to
thank you
answer all your
for joining
questions.
us. And again, ERA sessions are a great way to learn more and more about what's taking place on the industry. So as you attend more events, always try and show up for 1 or 2 sessions. You never know what you'll learn or who you'll meet.
Thank you.
you.